What is up, everyone? And if you could tell by that intro, it is never too late to review a new Linkin Park album, and that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about today, because Linkin Park's The Hunting Party just dropped 2 days ago, and I was too busy, regrettably, to review it. But, as I said, it is never too late, so here we go. So, basically, does this album live up to its predecessor? In my opinion, does this album have what it takes to be the next Hybrid Theory or Meteora? Or even if you want to go that far as Living Things? Well, stay tuned to find out and keep watching. So, this album dropped 2 days ago. I was too busy to actually review it due to my full-time job, my work, and everything like that, and my personal life, but I am here right now to tell you guys what I think of it. So, basically, this is the first album in a very long time to feature any sort of really edgy metal and hard rock fusion together to form kind of the formula that they had back in the day, like upwards of 10 to 12 years ago with Meteora and Hybrid Theory. So this is actually kind of closer to their original material than a lot of what was released in the past couple years, including Living Things, regrettably, in my opinion, because Living Things is one of my favorite Linkin Park albums. I actually like it and place it third. It pretty much is the album that should have came after Meteora. Hybrid Theory, Meteora, Living Things. I mean, I don't really like Minutes to Midnight that much, albeit a few songs on that album, and I really detest 1,000 Suns. But then again, if you want to hear my opinion on 1,000 Suns, I have a review of it on my Facebook, but it's not all that pretty. Basically, with this album, though, they returned to form even more so than on Living Things, because I said Living Things was kind of a return to form, as they added a little bit more of the variation in the choruses and the song structures. They sounded a little bit more melodic, a little bit more popish, like they did in the previous albums, Hybrid Theory and Meteora, with a little bit of an edge to them, albeit this album definitely puts the guitars back in the rock format that they initially had to begin with. There's a lot less pop, but they still use synthesizers in their vocals to create these awesome chorus-like anthem vocal harmonies, which I actually like. I mean, it's kind of like their 3 albums, Living Things, Hybrid Theory, and Meteora, put together. I mean, it's not too much pop, it's not too much rock, so I actually quite like it. However, this album does have a lot of drawbacks, and that does include the featured artists. Now, this is my biggest concern with this album. This is my biggest complaint, because the featured artists really kind of detract from what Linkin Park actually stood for in the beginning. I mean, this is a Linkin Park album. I would be fine if there's maybe, like, one track with, you know, a featured artist, say Rebellion with Darren Malakian, the guitarist from System of a Down, excuse me. I like that song. It's one of my favorite songs on the album, if not my very favorite song on the album. But some of the rapping verses in, say, All for Nothing or Guilty All the Same, I mean, they just don't sound right without Mike. Mike Shinoda is probably one of my favorite rappers of all time, and yeah, Rakim is really good, and he's one of the most famous rappers in history from the 90s, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section, but he just doesn't fit the song, Guilty All the Same. I mean, I feel like it should be a little bit more energetic, and I feel like the live performances of this song are actually going to be a lot better, because it doesn't have that demo-like production. I really don't like the demo-like production, and Mike will be rapping it. They're not going to get Malakian, they're not going to get Rakim in every single time they want to perform Guilty All the Same. They'll have Mike do it, which will be kind of a refreshing take, and it'll kind of be a breath of fresh air, because I feel like the featured artists kind of detract from the quality of this album, and they kind of make it seem like I don't know, like a Santana album where they're featuring different vocals on every single track, and it kind of gets a little bit annoying. I mean, in my opinion, there's really not enough Chester on this album, and it kind of shows, especially with some songs such as All for Nothing, where he only really appears in the chorus, and, you know, barely that much at that. And, of course, Until It's Gone, I mean, Chester sings the entire song, so that was kind of refreshing, but I really didn't like it that much, because it just kind of seemed to drag on. Songs like Final Masquerade, Drawbar is alright, Rebellion, and Keys to the Kingdom are my definite favorite cuts off the album. Even A Line in the Sand, which is their longest song in history, beating out The Little Things Give You Away by about 15 seconds, is a really good song, and it's a really great closer. So, I mean, there are really good things about this album, but if it was just Linkin Park with no featured artists, I think it would be better. I think it would almost be better than Living Things. I mean, a lot of the stuff on this album is just, it's good, but it kind of convolutes itself in the verses and the actual structure, because a lot of what is here is presented and kind of bland in its structure with the riffs and kind of just the overall feeling of the song. It just kind of feels like some of these songs just kind of drag on, and I will get into more detail with a track by track. So Keys to the Kingdom opens up the album with kind of a really messed up and weird intro. I gotta say, I really didn't like the intro at all. I mean, it sounds like he's talking into a fan. That's what one of my friends, Bionate1, said. Yeah, I know I shouted him out a bunch of times, but that's what he said. He said it sounds like he's talking and shouting into a fan. And it seems like Chester has kind of lost his ability a little bit to scream, but then he, gets more into it as the song begins. But if they cut out the intro, I would really love this song. But, it is what it is, I suppose. The intro is not exactly my favorite. Don't really like it that much. But once it gets past the intro, you get into a really kind of old school, intense Linkin Park kind of album, or kind of song, I should say, that would really fit really well on Meteora. Maybe not Hybrid Theory, but Meteora is a definite fit for this song. It's a really great song. Of course, they have to swear. They have to drop the F-bomb a few times in every single chorus, but it doesn't really detract from the song quality, unlike on Minutes to Midnight, where they swore in practically every other song. I actually kind of like Living Things, where they didn't swear at all, but, that's just my opinion, I suppose. I listen to a lot of music with, profanity and the like in it, but it's never really detracting from the quality of the music. It's never really kind of obnoxious like it is on Minutes to Midnight. I mean, I can kind of see it, but if it's really unnecessary and it's over and over and over again, then it kind of gets old. But in this song, it's not really that noticeable. I mean, it sounds like an old school Linkin Park song. I really like it. Keys to the Kingdom, one of my favorites on the album. All for Nothing, however, the first song featuring someone is Paige Hamilton. Now, call me a noob, but I thought it was a chick. When I read the title, I'm like, oh, Linkin Park's gonna feature a chick? But no, it's just a rapper. I mean, it's someone filling in for Mike. So I don't know if Mike was just unavailable during half of the recording of this album, because it seems like a lot of the rapping is done by other people, like Paige Hamilton, Rakim, and the like. So I don't know whether or not maybe he was unavailable, maybe they just wanted a different sound, maybe they just wanted to try something new, I don't know. But the fact remains that it detracts from the actual quality of the song, and it makes it feel like it's something different other than Linkin Park. So this one is kind of like a pass-through for me. I didn't really care for it that much because it kind of had a more monotonous structure as well. I did like the beginning, and the intro was pretty sweet with the guitars, and it's really nice to kind of hear that edge back in Linkin Park versus Living Things, where really only the song Victimized had any sort of edge in it, and All Be Gone, of course. But I mean, that album was probably better for me, in my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't rate it a 9.3 anymore. I mean, I wouldn't even rate anything a 9.3 anymore, but that's a stupid rating. But anyways, I kind of like Living Things a little bit better because it was solely Linkin Park. It was just about Linkin Park. It wasn't Linkin Park and Friends. The next song is, of course, Guilty All the Same, which was the lead single for this album's promotion, and as I said in my review, it has a very demo-like production. It's very kind of raw, and I don't know, the production just seems to be a little flat and a little bit back in the mix. You can't really hear anything. It feels like it's being recorded in the garage, and that's very different from the rest of the album, which seems to be way up there in production. And on a side note, it feels like some of the singles were produced like, much like this song, Guilty All the Same, kind of with the raw intent with a demo kind of production, but they sold them on iTunes. They sold them as singles, so I don't know why they wouldn't try and polish it up. Maybe bring the guitars a little bit closer into the mix, raise up the bass and boost the tempo and everything, and just kind of bring everything to the front versus, just kind of recording everything all at once, maybe, because it sounded like they recorded it live in a garage or something like that. With that being said, the actual song structure is very varied. It's got a lot of variation to it. It's got a lot of variety in the single, in the verse structure as well as the choruses, and it's a very kind of guitar-driven song, guitar-oriented, much like a lot of their older material, and much like Keys to the Kingdom before it. So with this song, what really kind of detracts from the quality is the Rakim verse. Like I said, Rakim, you're a great rapper, and very admirable and everything, and inspirational, but in my Linkin Park, I mean, it's just, Mike should have been there, in my opinion. He's got a more energetic style, and he brings a lot of flair to Linkin Park, especially when they're trying to do a rap rock mix, much like they used to do back in the days of Hybrid Theory and Meteora. So, in my opinion, it's a good song, but they should have used Mike instead of Rakim. So, the next one is The Summoning, and this one is a 1 minute long, kind of a static track, kind of a filler thing, just, you know, kind of white noise to fill in the gap to War, which is another guitar-driven song, and it's a really good one. I especially like Chester Bennington's vocals on this one. Like I said, this album doesn't have enough Chester, and this one definitely kind of bridges the gap for those Chester fans, and it's a very good song overall. It's got a great riff structure, really good sounding guitars, and great production, unlike the next one, Wastelands. This one is one of my least favorite songs, and that's not because I don't really like the vocals, it's not because of the structure or anything. Well, actually, it kind of is because of the structure, but it's just kind of boring. It just kind of falls flat, and I don't really like it that much because it's just, the production on it isn't that great. It's more like a demo, much like the rest of the singles, with the exception of Until It's Gone, which is the next song. I liked it, but I hated the music video. I thought it was kind of stupid, but I like Until It's Gone. I like the idea behind it, and the lyrics are very well crafted, but it just seems a little bit preachy and a little bit too calm for me, for Linkin Park. I mean, Chester, like I said, amazing vocalist, and I really like it, but, you know, him as a vocalist. But in this song, he just kind of sings everything in the same tone, it seems. And for me, Linkin Park should be about variation. They should be about, you know, kind of upping the ante, so to speak. The next song, Rebellion, this is my favorite song of all time off this album. I really love the intro. I really like what Darren Malakian has to offer for this track. It's kind of a different kind of pace for it. It's a guitar-driven track, and it almost sounds like their old stuff. I mean, much like Keys to the Kingdom before it, I really like this song. It's probably my very favorite, actually it is my very favorite song on the album, and it's just very aggressive, very angsty, and I just love what Darren Malakian has to bring to the table. This is one of those instances where a featured artist definitely kind of adds to it versus detracts, much like in the rapping verses of Paige Hamilton and Rakim. So, really like this song, really like the lyrics as well, and just kind of the overall idea behind it is very interesting to listen to. The next one is Mark the Graves, and this is where the album kind of goes downhill as well. Kind of another boring one to listen to. I didn't really like it that much. I mean, it's okay, but it just kind of drags on. Kind of monotone a little bit. And it's not to say it's a bad song. I mean, I still enjoy some of the instrumental sections, but just the actual vocals and kind of the vocal harmonies and everything, I just didn't really care for that much. It's kind of hard to explain, I suppose. The next two songs, though, Final Masquerade and A Line in the Sand, top-notch, excellent Linkin Park. A Line in the Sand, though, it was kind of iffy for me in the beginning, but then it quickly picked itself up and got really, really kind of more on the aggressive side, but a little bit more on the calm side as well. So I suppose it's more in the mid-tempo range. It's a really awesome closer, and I really like it. Overall, I'd probably give this album a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's not up there with, say, Living Things. It's not up there with Hybrid Theory, Meteora, and all those other albums, but it definitely beats out Minutes to Midnight, and it beats out 1,000 Suns by, like, 1,000 Suns. So, yeah. I did like this album. I did enjoy listening to it, but for me, I just felt like there was too many featured artists, and it should have been just Linkin Park. They're trying to get back into what Linkin Park was all about, so it should have just been Linkin Park. And I think they could have reworked a few of the choruses and a few of the song structures to make this album into kind of a better overall final product. So, 8.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching my review. This is Midnight Strike 3625, and as always, keep calm and rock on.